Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Huddle, where we come at you every Tuesday to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. I say flooring career, but frankly, we talk about any number of things, and it's super applicable to business in general. It just happens to be we're in a very difficult business called flooring, and so there's a lot to garner. Join in this week. We are talking, as usual, with Daniel and Jose of Preferred Flooring. Gentlemen, how's your week starting? How's it going?
Uh, Same bat channel, same bat. Busy, in and out of the field for me the past couple of weeks. But
We had FCICA regional today, so I rushed back here so I can be on here, and he's probably still in the parking lot.
Oh, really?
no, I just made it to my destination. I backed the trailer in and turned my computer on.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining me, and I should say all of us. And always, you guys are a staple, and I cannot tell you every week how much I appreciate you. Uh,
Likewise, man.
so that being said, this week's huddle is it's more than just skill. And really, what the follow up to that is, we're talking more than just technical skill. This probably gets a little bit more into mindset and working to please a client and please your customer. And one of the reasons that Go Carerra decided to launch the Fourth Progress Scholarship Fund for CIM is, if you just review the CIM documents, or if you have any CIMs that work for you, SIM for short, you realize a lot of that's got to do with how you deal with customers and clients, and making sure that you're setting yourself up to try to give your client the best experience possible. That's what we preach at my company, is providing a superior experience, a good experience for the customer. And from an installer standpoint, you are in a, and I'm not just talking about or singling out installers, but this is applicable to companies as well. But from an installer standpoint, you have like a really tough job, because you got more than just one client, right? On a project, you're trying to satisfy the end user. You're also trying to satisfy your client's client, be it the GC or a property management company. And then you're trying to, please your flooring company that you may be working for. Or if you're anywhere in there, a lot of times, installers have multiple people they have to, or multiple entities they have to, take care of and please. It's one of the things when I was installing all the time that I was cognizant of, and I would always try to be as cool as I could be to the owner, as a 25-year-old kid that didn't know nothing uh, other than how to lay carpet. I really started dipping my toes in how to be a professional. So one of the things that I feel is probably, well, let me put it this way. In the Go Career Network, you're given kudos for doing a good job, and you're given kudos for professionalism, punctuality, dependability, attitude, and exceptional quality. Those are the items those are the five metrics that you can actually earn kudos for doing, going above and beyond. Those are the things that I found are most important for installers to display a high level of ability in. If you can show up when you're supposed to, so that's punctuality. Be there when you say you're going to be there on a given day. I know dependability and punctuality are similar, but they're not the same. So if I can depend on you, is what is required for dependability. You could be punctual, but also I can, you may not be the type of person that can be depended upon. So dependability, professionalism, so being a true professional as an installer, a good attitude. If you don't like this business, I would encourage you to teach somebody how to do what you're doing and then go do something else. But please replace yourself before you leave.
Please.
But look, you're going to do this for 8-10 hours a day. You might as well try to have the best attitude possible. And then exceptional quality. So those soft skills, as we call them, is what I kind of wanted to discuss with you guys today. So how important is it, or how much weight do you put on an installer for, say dependability and punctuality? And I'm talking subs in particular, because an hourly, if they're not there on time or what have you, there are some consequences. But what do you guys? Which ones actually? Let me ask you this: out of those, which ones would you take in highest regard?
Well, I'll go ahead and start, and I'm just going to add to this, because we still are subs, right? We still get work from other stores. We still get work from other companies. So I'm going to speak it from that aspect. And I think it was very important, and I learned early on that creating that standard as a subcontractor working for another store is I was representing someone else. And although my shirts might have said preferred flooring, when I made a phone call to a client or a general, or I presented myself, it was always Jose with so-and-so company. It was never Jose with preferred flooring, right? And I still do that to this day. When I make a phone call, I say, hey, this is Jose with so-and-so. When I meet them face-to-face, I am wearing preferred. And they say, hey, I thought you were with Banana. We're representing this company, but, this is my company as well. And we try to have the proper representation. Early on, I did learn that being able to communicate with whomever, end user, general, the store we're doing work for, was extremely huge in building and creating and maintaining relationships. So I want to say that communication for me has been some of the most important items to have, because that's very broad, but extremely important.
It can cover up a lot of the other, maybe if you're not as punctual as you'd like to be, or maybe as you should be. If you're a hell of a communicator, you can sure cover that up pretty well. Hey man, I'm running 10 minutes late. And if you let them know 30 minutes beforehand that you're running 10 minutes late, no one gets mad at you.
You been reading my notes? Is that my how-to notes? Because that's literally my life, man.
Well, you know how it goes. You got the guys that show up late and they just show up, and then you got the guys that'll actually communicate. I'm running behind, and they'll let you know a half hour or an hour before you get there, so you're not waiting on them. So that's a good point. I don't have that in the metric. We probably should, and I wonder how that would be measured. But that's a good point, because communication can cover up, and it's very, very needed, obviously, but it can sure help you through some of the other shortfalls. What about you, Daniel?
I think you gotta know how to communicate, because there's too many times where guys, that sometimes, that have worked with us in the past, and they don't know how to turn on and off the professional thing. So there's a time and place for everything. So if you can't kind of turn that on and off and know your settings, then you're already kind of falling a little bit behind.
So they're almost like a facade is what you mean? Like they're putting on a professional facade and they don't know when to turn it on and off?
Well, they don't know how to put on that professional, they don't have that switch to where it's like, yeah, you can be yourself, right? But you still have to be professional about it. And it's just some guys, they just, the way they talk is the way they talk, and there is no switching them off from that.
I'll give an example on that, because I know exactly what Daniel's talking about. And I'll refer to a job, years ago where we had a quarantine in a very large grocery store. And the only thing separating us from the employees and the customers was a sheet of plastic, right? No soundproof room or anything like that. And it goes back to the out of sight, out of mind thing, right? Like just because we couldn't see people doesn't mean that they couldn't hear us. And, I can't, I'm guilty of not always carrying my professional cap. I like to joke around. I like to make jokes with staff, and sometimes you get that unfriendly reminder that hey, we can actually hear you guys or we can see you guys, and I've been guilty of that, of being on the unprofessional end of that, and all you can do is apologize, and, say sorry, and it's hard because construction is there are some pretty raw individuals and individuality in construction when you're installing in the field versus you have a lot of practice in the office setting or the professional setting versus the hands-on setting where in the commercial world sometimes you have a whole building to yourself, thousands of square feet. Sometimes you have 200 square feet and you're surrounded by employees and staff, and you have to learn how to hit that switch and turn it on and keep it on for the duration of the day, that project, that week, that month.
Yeah, well, and I think we have to kind of recognize there's different types or levels of professionalism. I mean, UFC fighters, the good ones are professionals, but how look at the industry they're in. They're professional within that industry. The same guy doesn't necessarily go who's considered a true professional in, say, MMA or UFC fighting may not do so good in a boardroom or something. Like I'm not even like when I give kudos for professionalism, it's usually not like the guy is got to be staunchy or you know what I mean, like uptight. I'm just talking. He knows how to communicate, and there's that word again. Communicate to the end user in a way that is not disrespectful and is in engaging the end user if they're talking to them or to the general contractor or dealing with the difficult superintendent or even dealing with the teammate and showing them how they want something done as opposed to just barking at them. Like that to me is professional. It doesn't mean you can't, you got to have your speech, dialed in as if you're going to be standing on stage in front of 10,000 people or something. It's more like professional within our industry means you can boil it down to the kind of the core of that may be communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It does go a long way. We sometimes get wrapped up being here loading up in the morning and then someone's expecting us at a certain time, and it's a lot better to call them as soon as we leave here when they're 45 minutes away, like, hey, I'm running 10 minutes late, so they can be like, all right, that job's just 5 minutes away from me, I'll just hold off a little bit and before I meet you there, rather than have them go there and start and just wait on you. It does go a long way. I mean, I can't say that I've never done that, like just don't even say nothing, and then you're like 5 minutes out and they're like, dude, where you at? I've been here for like 20 minutes already.
Yeah, that comes out to play really hard when you're dealing with a customer who believes if you're on time you're late, and if you're early you're on time.
Yeah.
We've got a few of those clients that like, well, I want to be hitting the ground running it when our meeting starts, not just walking up to the building. So those guys, I got to get there a little bit earlier. Yeah, I think it is good communication is kind of the cornerstone to a lot of this. I think it would be hard for you to give somebody, credit for being a professional if they didn't communicate well. So it's a rock in that. Same with attitude. If someone's not communicating with you well, it almost comes off as a bad attitude. And they may not even have a bad attitude, but people who don't communicate in a effective manner, at least, doesn't mean you have to be Mr. Outgoing, but just an effective communication manner. I think that helps with attitude as well, right? I mean, it's kind of a cornerstone to a lot of these is this communication piece.
we in our industry, and then when we go to a lot of these conventions and meetings, there are quite a few introverts that do get up there and speak, and they're really good communicators, right? But they're introverts. They don't. That's it's because that's what their profession is calling for. It's what the moment is calling for, and then after they go up and do a presentation, they go back to being themselves. And you can be yourself if you're an introvert, extrovert, and still communicate well. Like you said, you don't have to be super outgoing. You don't have to be the jokester. You don't have to be super technical. Just be honest, be yourself, and communicate your point. Communicate the information.
Yeah, so overall, I just think that you can have. We all know the installer that's got like crazy good skills and a crazy bad attitude. I know a couple, and that's what I'm kind of, you know, covertly addressing here is the guys that got all these great skills, but they're lacking the soft skills of the communication, the and again, communication can bridge a lot of other problems if you're just good at communicating. In any given scenario, but it's missing those soft skills where you really care about doing what you say you're going to do, and we all struggle with that a bit. I mean, I know I do. I say everybody, but I should just take that on my own shoulders. I was trying to get some company on that, but I struggle myself with doing what I say I'm gonna. If I say I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, when I say I have to be cognizant, is why I say I struggle. I have to be cognizant of actually getting that on a calendar and getting that scheduled so that I can make sure to execute upon it. I've had to put systems in place that help me to remember to do those things, because a lot of times you'll be having a conversation with someone and you say, oh yeah, man, I'll take care of you on that. If you forget it, you may have had the best intentions, but if you forget to do it, then so there's a little more than just doing what you say, which is being dependable or being, punctual. It's also about having some time management skills, I think, to make sure that you don't forget these things or forget to do what you say you're going to do. Because frankly, I know guys that they have really good intentions when they say something and then they forget it.
Yeah, like I tell everybody, I'm an 80% guy, right? There's some things that I'll get to 100%, but usually I get to about 80%, and then my superpower of ADHD kicks in, and then you get bored and you kind of get sidetracked, and then other items kind of take over that. And it's a matter, like you said, it's a matter of controlling it. I carry around these notebooks all the time because it is a little bit of a reminder to review the dates and everything.
Kudos to your notebook, by the way.
I make notes it's for me. It's not for anybody else, right? It's for me. I did try doing it on my phone for a while, using the programs on the phone, but handwriting it and going through those helped me out a ton. Do I get everything done? Heck no, man. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I take on a little bit too much, but like you said, it's just a matter of exercising that muscle, right? Getting used to following something to completion. Is some people have it naturally, some people got to work on it.
Well, I'm the guy that's got to work on it.
Me too.
Just because I want to do, I want to be able to make people feel that I care about them when I'm dealing with it, particularly clients and things. But most of that's follow through on my commitments. And so I've got various ways. I use a calendar like Google Calendar. If it's on there, I'm in good shape. If it's not, there's a good chance it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I've
just
noticed
my to-do list doesn't work. It's got to be like scheduled appointment.
Right, and I've noticed that like in the office, it's a lot easier to get off track and not hit what you say you're gonna do unless you have something scheduled. But in the field, it was a lot easier because, talking to a GC or, whoever's on site and saying, this is where we're going to be at the end of the day. And then we're essentially working until we hit that point and not leaving until we do. Or, this is where we're going to be at the end of the week, and then split it up, that way what you're doing each day is a lot easier than coming in here and being like, it just gets so overwhelming with everything that's going on. And then it's so much easier to get distracted by the little things when you're in the office than when you're in the field, because you already know, like over here, you can be like, yeah, I'll just do that for a minute. And then like an hour goes by, be like, oh man, what was I supposed to do again? But when you're in the field, it's like you can see exactly where your starting and end point is. And you know exactly, all right, I got to be over there and I want to leave in 45 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, in the field, you get lost a bit in your work too. I mean, like I focus so much better on the installation I'm doing. I'm not checking my phone. I'll go hours and hours and hours and hours without ever even looking at a phone when I'm installing. When I sit at my desk and I'm working on stuff and get an email and then a text message and then this and then that and the other, you got all these distractions. You would think it'd be the opposite, being in a controlled environment that we created. I mean, it's my office. I created the environment and it's full of distractions, whether it's employees coming in, hey, got a second, or an email comes across, like I said, or a Slack message or whatever. I've turned most of my notifications off, but I get what you're saying, Daniel. It's like you got all these little things. That's where I find it hard to really focus. In the field, like you said, it's a little easier on this piece, I should say. It's a little easier. I think it's part of when I'm talking about punctuality and dependability, professionalism out there. It's just, if you say you're going to be somewhere on a Saturday at noon to meet a bank to open up the door and do the job, you got to be there on Saturday at noon. That's what you said you would do. It's those kinds of things where you really damage your reputation if you let people down too many times. And you damage your reputation with yourself when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it. You're losing credit with your own self. I know that sounds a little odd, but one of my mentors said that's probably the most important promise you can keep are those promises to yourself. It bleeds over into how you treat other people is how you treat yourself. So it's a little mindset stuff there.
I have a question too. Like, and this is broad, and this could incorporate more people. Is how much of these distractions and how much other items are the cause of a lower grade of communication, right? Like how much outside stress or how much stress causes us to not communicate well. Like, what is it? Like, how can we mitigate that? How can we find other things to help our environment, whether it's in the field or in the office, at home, so that way it doesn't affect our ability to communicate and be at the top of our game. Like, I'm always open to ideas like that because every day is different for everyone, for myself included.
I think fear is probably the number one killer of communication. Just fear of saying something, fear of being ridiculed for a question, or you, as a boss, I try to make it easy for people to come to me to ask questions, and to do so, I don't want them to feel like I think they're stupid, which I don't. They're all very intelligent people, but it's how you answer a question or deal with someone can make them feel that way. So my point being to this is fear of especially the introvert people you spoke of earlier, Jose. I think fear is one of those things that just make people clam up and shut down. I'm an introvert by nature. That's the 100% truth. I don't have a problem talking to people. I don't have a problem, communicating with people. But as an introvert, that really means, when you're in a crowd of people, whether it's at a convention or whatever, are you energized by that? And when you leave it, are you energized by all that interaction with other people? Or are you depleted? Are you tired? And I could be talking to 4 or 5 people in a group for an hour. And when I'm done with it, I'm pretty much exhausted. It's like it takes a lot of effort for me to communicate and be outgoing as an introvert. That's just something I've learned about myself over the years, and I've learned to deal with because I was really pretty shy and quiet in my earlier adult life as well. Um, so the communication piece, you just got to be okay with getting feedback. I think that feedback and maybe the consequence of whatever that communication is. That's why you don't call the person, right? That's why you don't. That's why some people don't call you to tell you they're running late because they don't want to hear you say again or, dude, I got to leave in 10 minutes. You got to get here now. Whatever the response is. They're just like, I'll get there and then deal with it.
I guess that's a easier way out is to, what's that saying? Easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true sometimes.
Sometimes some people live and die by that. It's kind of hard, but the insight you just gave me, it's fairly accurate to the mannerism that we've experienced over the years from people, and some would say that I'm outgoing, and as an outgoing person, it's not that I want to go in the middle of a crowd and talk. It's like, hey, just want to like be the voice. Right? That's not me. I'll interact with everyone, but if everyone's being quiet, I'll sit in the corner. I'll be quiet too. But I guess my energy is fueled by the environment.
He will not just sit there and be quiet. He's lying to you.
Oh,
I
that's
have a lot to say about
You're right.
everything, but I do like to interject. I like to bring humor to everything, and I like to laugh and I like to have fun because I truly enjoy what I do, no matter what I'm doing. And
Well,
if
being around you enough, I could tell you enjoy communication. You enjoy conversation with people. Those are all. Um, I think you're a great communicator, but how you get someone who is maybe not so natural at it. I don't know if you're natural or if you've just built up the muscle for communication, but someone who is truly just a shy person and has some fear of talking to people.
yeah,
I'm no psychologist. I don't know how to solve that. All I can tell you is the value of communication truly outweighs the any of the consequences in 99% of cases. So it's just better to be, good communicative. And I feel like we maybe have swayed here, but really what the whole huddle was intended to be is like these soft skills, and communication is one of those. You can have great hand skills and still not get the pay you deserve for those hand skills, not get the opportunities you deserve. I know, I will tell you a quick story I lost a client for a while. Come to find out, one of my PMs was just super difficult. And I mean, we bent over backwards for the most part for this client. But I go talk to him, and I asked the CEO to lunch, and this has been several years ago, but I was like, hey, man, we used to do all your work. Now I maybe see a project a year from you. What is going on? And he's like, you guys don't communicate. It's hard to get a hold of your guy, and at the end of the day, it's just not pleasant. I said, no quality problems, none of that. He's like, no, we've never had a problem with your quality. I was like, I was really set aside because I always thought like that was the most important thing. And I still believe it is, but man, isn't communication and professionalism kind of squeezing up there if you can lose a client because they didn't enjoy working with you. Someone else made it easier to work with them. And maybe that other company doesn't even do the same level of quality as we do, but they'd rather be there than deal with someone who's high quality but difficult to deal with. So,
That's a good
the
point,
soft
man.
skills and the soft skills are a true thing. You can win and lose work dependent upon your level of ability in that arena. So
I do
that's my two
like that
cents.
view. I do like that view, and I might never have viewed it like that either, right? Because you kind of rely on your hard skills, your hands-on ability to help sustain some of your clients. But yeah, you're right. I guess and the same thing for me. I never really looked at it like that. If I'm not communicating, if I'm not communicating well with someone else, they have every right to not like that and go elsewhere. Easier communication
If you're
is peace
if
of
you're
mind.
making if you're making their life hell, or if it's just not pleasant to deal with you, the clients who realize like I got to do this stuff for 8 hours and 10 hours a day, like I said earlier, you should enjoy it. Well, those clients that realize that, they're like, you're no fun to work with, man. You're hard if you're difficult to work with but have the best skill, you're still not recognizing your potential. I think that was really what I wanted to like make
Yeah,
sure is clear. You can be wonderful from a technical install perspective, but if you're difficult to deal with and not pleasant and don't do what you say, all those things, you're not realizing the potential that you have to in earning money, in earning respect, and in influence, in
And
your influence in the
you
industry.
can kind of flip that, right? Because in the groups, there's a lot of talk about customers that are horrible to deal with and how they hate doing that. But then you kind of got to look at that, with yourself too, because sometimes like you said, the customers don't want to deal with you because you're difficult to deal with. It's not. It goes both ways. It's not just always the customer. We've had calls here at the office to where I'll answer and they'll be like, "You're like the sixth person I've called and the only one that has answered the phone."
Yeah, that's a big thing these days, especially at the office. But yeah, you know what's interesting? You bring up the Facebook groups on that is never do I see in those groups like, guys, I'm having problems connecting with my customers. I constantly have bad customers, or I have customers that are difficult to deal with. Maybe it's me.
What
What
am
are
I
some
doing wrong,
tips?
right?
What are some tricks? If it's always happening to you guys, there's a common denominator there called
yeah.
you. Not every customer is hard to deal with. There's certainly difficult ones. I mean, I got some that are hard to deal with, and I just got to barrel through it. I also have great ones. Uh, if all I experienced was bad customer interactions, I probably need to look at myself, and that introspective attitude could go a long way. So that's a good point, Daniel.
And I also wonder, like, these soft skills. I wonder is there a way to gauge it? Like, at what level are you expected to have this certain set of soft skills, right? From entry level all the way to management. Um, like, is there any way to template expectations?
I don't know about expectations. I could say that I think it's like walking for a toddler or for an infant. You start learning as early as possible, and you only get better as you practice.
So then
Start
having
like if you're brand new in this industry, focus on your communication, focus on some of the, professionalism, focus on your ability um to influence people, focus on what you can control, and then keep getting better. Just like an infant walking, it's going to take, they just get started, they don't know what the hell they're doing, but
Yeah.
they don't, you
And
just keep going and keep going, and as you go, your communication is you're going to hone that skill.
Yeah, on Facebook, Eduardo actually said that a while ago. You know, I think it was when you were talking about like getting up in front of people and talking and stuff, right? But it all goes together. It's the more you do it, the more practice you get at it, the better you're going to be. So if you have to start somewhere. So just start, you know, baby steps. Start with the customers, then work up to getting in front of that crowd. And you know, it's not for everyone. It's not for me. I realize that. I still do it, but
Yeah. Well, and communication, it's got different levels. I mean, you don't have to be a public speaker to be a good communicator. And the other soft skills that I think that are, so important in this industry, like I said, dependability and punctuality are two of my biggest. That's not, what it takes is just communicating on a consistent manner, getting used to what are those triggers when you do need to make a phone call, and then just not being scared to make the phone call. You don't need to be an extrovert to communicate. Like I said,
Yeah.
and you don't even need to be some extrovert to be outgoing. Introverts can talk and do plenty of stuff and public speak as well. But these other skills, I call them soft skills, but it's not a skill to honor what you say. I'm going to be there Tuesday at 7 a.m. to be there at Tuesday at 7 a.m. And then use your communication if you're not going to make it to buffer your time. But that's what I'm glad you brought it up, Jose, is because, communication, which we don't have as a metric in the Kudo system, but it's a good way to get yourself out of, it's a good way to get yourself a lot of opportunity and keep yourself out of a lot of trouble if you're a good communicator.
And you hold yourself accountable too if you're able to make those phone calls and say, hey, I'm running behind. And like beginning of the meeting today, it happens to me a lot. Either I'm 10 minutes late, or I have a client that's 10 minutes late, or a conversation during a meeting lasts a little bit longer, but I still have 3 other places to go. And now I'm 15 minutes behind, put me in a worse spot for traffic. And I do have to call those people, or maybe in the middle of the meeting of the sit down, I'll shoot out a text message, because that's a lot of communication through here now too. Like, hey, just to give you a heads up, we're running a little bit longer than expected. I am going to be, if I know I'm going to be at least 10 minutes late, I'm going to put 15 or 20 minutes on there to give me a little bit of time. Because now, maybe the wrong mindset, but now if I'm earlier than the 15 minutes that I said I was going to be late, if I show up at 7 minutes later than original time, now, hey, I'm early now.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and remember, this is progress, not perfection. I'm certainly not sitting here in front of anybody saying I'm the best communicator in the world that never runs late or I stack my schedule pretty hard. I just try to text or communicate, and specifically if I'm dealing with clients, I mean, you got to show them the respect. So yeah, it's kind of the catalyst. Nice conversation around communication. It's kind of the catalyst and the protector of the other soft skills, kind of in my view after this conversation.
Do you guys got any recommendations on any books or any audiobooks that would help someone have more insight on becoming better at these soft skills and communicating?
The only book that comes straight to mind is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a really good book.
7 Habits. I'm going to actually write that down. So
I think it's Stephen Covey, if I remember right.
yeah.
I really like listening to audiobooks, man. I don't know how or why I seems to be the only time that I can fit something in when I'm zoning out.
I mean, you probably, as much as you're in your truck driving around, if you're listening to audiobooks, you probably have a master's degree in whatever you're listening to.
I'm all over the board, man.
The equivalent of a master's degree. Oh, yeah. I mean, you could have half a master's in how to run a softball league and then half a master's in run a flooring company. half a master's in raising children, cooking barbecue, you know,
I don't know.
perfect short ribs.
Anybody said they have a raising children, they're lying.
No doubt. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on this week. I know it's a little bit shorter, not much, but it's interesting how some of our conversations, which way they go. I actually learned more than I was anticipating, just kind of throwing out there these soft skills and having a discussion. But I don't even have communication on that list, and it's pretty clear. It's like the catalyst to everything.
It
So
tied right into it.
what a way that these things kind of, what you learn. You can be the moderator or the head guy at anything and sit there and learn if you just want to, if you just have open ears. So learned something today. So I want to thank you two for joining me and having good conversation. We'll see you next week, and you guys have a great week.
Hey, thanks. You too, brother.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, bye.